Guess what that is? I know, it's a small block Chevy. You guys are smart. But guess what it's going in? Let me know in the comments. Let's do this early on. Let me know what you think I would put a small block Chevy in for myself. I don't think you're going to get it. Okay, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Holley for all this beautiful goodness right here. The Sniper 2 fuel injection, the valve covers, the intake, the air cleaner, and we can't forget it's got all Isky valve train in it. So we're going to put that in right now. That truck's been sitting right there probably 10 years and I've been stripping it. I was not looking forward to pulling it out. That gets soft there once in a while. I was hoping the forklift didn't get stuck. Well, that worked better than I thought. With that rear end dragging the ground, it's about to go 45 degrees in there and leaving parts behind. I thought it was going to bury the forklift, but it cut a couple grooves. The tires spun a little bit. Oh, I got a mess. Drive shaft's come out of the transmission and it's leaking all over the concrete. I better go get something and stop that. Between the leaves, the rat nests, and the moss growing on this thing, it was kind of getting reclaimed by Mother Nature. I'm using my Christmas present from Debbie here. It's a steel backpack blower. It does the job, and it made short work of getting all that debris out of this truck. You can probably tell I'm enjoying ripping this thing apart. I don't normally get to just tear stuff up like you see on these videos all the time. In fact, this is the only thing I have that I can do that too. I care nothing about the truck. I only wanted the engine out of it. What else is holding it on? Wires, I think. Yeah. So that may take a minute. I'm going to Captain cuts a lot. Today, anyway. I don't want to plug anything. That takes too long. Let's see, what else? Maybe that big harness. Those cables are already disconnected. This, whatever that is, hood. This, man, no, that's not connected. Oh, brake lines. We can do away with those puppies. Battery cable. That's gone. Whatever that is, that's not hooked up. That's a battery cable. That's gone. Uh-oh. Alright, I just got brake fluid of all things on my brand new Sawzall. Brake fluid will eat paint. Alright, now let's see if we can lift that thing off of there. Hopefully. That thing ran that long without the fuel being turned on. Okay, that was easier than unbolt. I did unbolt a lot of bolts, but I didn't have to take care of anything. Like everything can be trashed now. Look at that. That needs to go away. But there's our Vortec 350. It don't look too bad after I got all the stuff blown off of it, the leaves and the rat nest. So I'm gonna.
I've got something for you.
At least that's pink. Earlier, the stuff that came out of the radiator hose was rust, and I thought, man, if this thing's got water in it, the motor's junk. But I think I'm gonna zip those exhaust manifolds off because they're easy to get to now, and I won't have to deal with them. I gotta throw them away anyway. I've already got the pipes off the bottom, so I'll just get those out of the way. Got the motor mounts out, transmission mount, cut the mounts on the the bolts on the cross member, so it'll pull forward, and when it gets to a certain point, it'll all come out. So there's not a lot left. I think the next thing is get these exhaust manifold bolts off, if they will, and they better, because I gotta use those heads. I don't know if I can get, yeah, I get it. Now it's got this stupid pipe. That's stainless steel. I'll have to try to find a wrench to get that. I just cut it. It don't cut so good. Those are rusty. I'm just happy that they're coming out. The other one's got that pipe on there, so let me, and I know that's millimetric. It looks like whatever standard is, 7/8, 13/16. Let me get some wrenches.
So what is this?
I don't know what this is, or what it was, but it's hooked to the exhaust manifold, and I don't want it there. So that's hooked there too. It needs to be out of the way, just like this thing. Okay, so I would cut that off at the manifold down there, but I can't get to the, I guess I'm not going to use this distributor anyway. Kind of a nice piece, but let's see, I'm just going to cut those wires. I need a pair of cutters, and I have them out here. Where are they? Don't plan, ouch, that's sharp. That's good. Messed up anyway, so I'm just going to cut them. I wouldn't use them anyway, right?
Right.
We'd get new ones if we were going to use that distributor. So get all that stuff out of my way. I'm not normally this destructive, but I'm only after the engine. I don't want the rest of it. Okay, that's out of my way. Now, those are out of the way. The last thing I know that's holding it is those fuel lines. I don't think I can reach it. I'm gonna use my new chopping saw. If I can reach in there, which I may not be able to. That was a good idea, but it just doesn't work. Maybe. I did. That was fuel line. Luckily, there's nothing in there. That's why I didn't try to use a torch earlier. I could just see them having fuel all the way up to the engine, and as soon as I torched them, it would drain out and be a fire under there. See, I'm thinking ahead. All right, so I think I can get the chain. I'm going to cut these other spark plug wires off and get them out of the way, because they're certainly in the way. We got brand new MSDs, new valve covers. And we got some nice new stuff.
No need worrying about this junk. The thing about they had everything attached. These were nice trucks. All right, I think I can put a chain from side to side and lift this puppy out of here. So let's have a drink, calm down and cool down and slow down. And then I'll come out with the chain and lift that thing out of there, hopefully. Okay, let's set it up there, just put that over the ball. Videos that I watch. Can you get something to throw under here? That chain right there. Just toss it under the front wheel. I feel like those videos where they confiscate cars and just jerk them out. I busted the oil filter, what that is. But I'm okay with that. I'll just clean up the mess. What a mess. Let's get this Vortec intake off here. I've never dealt with one of these. What a weird deal. So somehow he's got that thing as the injector, and it runs hard lines to the injectors. I'm not going to have that. Now the problem is there's a lot of crud. I don't want to blow it. I'm going to have to carefully clean that because I don't want it down inside the engine. Let's I'm going to raise it up and take the converter bolts loose. Then we can separate it. Let's do that next. Smart, I would have drained the oil and taken the filter off. But I'm not. I was in a hurry. Half of the oil filter is laying under, dude. It decapitated it when it came out. Okay, that'll do for now. So I need 10mm socket to take off the flywheel cover. Ooh, that's rusty and crusty in there. It's been sitting on the ground a long time. Well, it was before I raised it up and put it on that drum. So now that looks like, I don't know, 14mm, I would suspect. I wonder if I can get it with a, I gotta get my turning tool. You know what, I'm gonna get a spark plug socket and jerk them out so I can zip it around. That didn't take much. My decapitated oil filter. That's not even, yeah, the filter's not in there anymore. Now let's see what it takes to get this adapter off. I assume that big thing in the middle that the threads are on probably unscrews, but I don't see a real way. Yeah. Didn't see a real way to get a hold of it. No, that's not it. There's bolts. It looks like it wants to be confusing. It looks like, oh, they're both Allen bolts. So let me get some Allen wrenches or Allen sockets. Yeah, let's get an Allen socket. You can pop. I would think, because it's a Chevrolet small block, that that would be a standard bolt, but I didn't want my sockets to feel left out, so I brought both, because I need every tool in my box out here instead of just a few. Guess what though? I think it's standard. I tried metric there to start with, and I think it's a 5/16, which I would think that because oil filter adapters for a small block Chevy should be standard. But anymore, and what is this thing? 97 to now.
28 years.
It's not exactly a new tech. Junk.
So even though it was a Saturday and I thought I was hid out, I was back behind the shop, not in front. Still had several people stop by, but that's okay. This guy here is my next door neighbor from Austria, and he's doing a little advertising for Alex Taylor Racing. We appreciate that. And he helps me carry this transmission, put it back behind the shop and, under a shed, and we got the motor back on the engine stand. That was pretty helpful. Now that I'm in the shop, the scary part is this is where I realized that it was worse than I thought. I ended up deciding here in just a minute after I got these heads off that I need to completely tear this thing down and do a rebuild on it. So that's where we're at. I'm getting ready to pull the heads and the crankshaft, the pistons, and start cleaning this thing. And this is the reason I wanted to pull it down. Now, granted, a lot of that stuff wouldn't be in there because that fell in when I pulled it out, but that's in the cooling system. So the best way to get that out of there is to take them off and clean them. But look at the head gaskets. Everything's tired. Pistons, though, look great. Cylinder walls, man, I wish our 55 could look like that when we take it apart. I know it's hard to see, but in this light, you can still see the hone marks at 60,000 miles, and there's zero ridge. Well, maybe a couple thousandths. That's about it. So the heads, even though the antifreeze was pink, I mean, like it just came out of a bottle. For some reason, I guess that stuff fell out of the cooling system. It had to. See right there, I don't know why it would corrode like that, but it did. So that's the infamous Vortec chamber. So all I see that they did was put this little peak around the valves, maybe a little bit more quench area. It's been a long time since I messed with small block stuff, but I guess that head's supposed to be pretty good. So the pistons, I'm gonna clean everything with a wire brush, take that cam out, just try to keep as much of it out of the inside as possible. Cross my fingers that I don't do the typical me and just take the whole thing apart. I really don't want to do that. I do not want to pull pistons out. I don't want to take the crankshaft out. Don't really want to take the cam out, except I'm really excited about having a hot rod cam. So it begins. So you can see that it snowballed right here, but you can see how brown and nasty that thing was on the inside. It just took a lot more cleaning than I really anticipated. I'm going to be buffing the top of the pistons off here. I thought maybe, they would be easy to clean, but once I got them out, they were really caked with burned or really nasty oil. Took a lot of scrubbing. I'm using my hot water pressure washer that you've seen in another episode where I built that thing and it works so good. I like to put a tap in the drill and chase the threads to clean them up. They're always rusty inside. You can see the dust fly when I blow them out. We did get some new parts. Got the new manual transmission flywheel. Got all the rings and the gaskets and the things that I need to put it back together. And I'm down to just finally cleaning the last few parts. So yesterday, for some reason, this truck only has 60,000 miles, but it was the dirtiest, nastiest motor I've ever dealt with. Well, maybe not ever. That's probably an overstatement, but I haven't done this in a long time.
the outside of it wasn't bad, but the inside was horrible. The pistons had so much carbon around the rings, and inside the pistons burned oil. I don't know what the deal was. This was Debbie's dad's truck, and I know Debbie's dad took care of stuff, but it was loaned out and it may not have been taken care of in the last part of its life, because it was the inside of it, the pistons and stuff were just horrible. So I finally found some stuff. It's ZEP, Z-E-P. It's a liquid concentrate that you use in a parts washer. It's water soluble. I've had it sitting here for a long time because I tried it in a parts washer and it didn't work like chemical stuff does for me, petrol based stuff. So it sat. Well, Debbie actually had the idea. It was sitting there and she said, try some of that stuff. And man, as long as it was straight out of the jug, it would clean stuff up awesome. I used it to clean the pistons. Look at this. Those things were just carboned. The rings were stuck and collapsed. That thing there was brown, the part that holds the lifters down. All of that stuff was just filthy. So I soaked everything with that and scrubbed the ring grooves with I'd say a broken ring, but the ring wouldn't actually break. I had to bend it. They were steel rings. In the process, my hands took a beating. I don't know if you can see that. My thumb, of course, that's a really bad place. Everything I do, I have to use my thumb. My fingers are cut up, but I cleaned the ring grooves with a ring. I bent it and just drug it through the ring grooves and got that all cleaned up. So I've actually re-honed the block. We've got new rings for it. I've got to take it out and clean it up, wash it one more time. So I'm down to the heads now. Once I took the springs off to clean the valves, I realized that I need to do the springs too. And it wouldn't be any big deal. You'd think you just bolt them in, but that's not the case. Let me show you here. So it's kind of sad, honestly. You know, I come from the small block days when small blocks actually had some beef to them. Look at the difference in the springs. This is like what I'm used to. It's a double spring. Of course, I know they didn't all come with double springs, but it's got a dampener. This little thing here is kind of like those little standard 392 Hemi springs. They're just tiny. Well, I couldn't bring myself to putting those back in. Just one spring, no damper, no inner spring, nothing. For a Vortec 350, you'd think it'd have a little bit more than that. So I got this head. I have to machine them, and I'll show you that process a little bit. I've got to open the spring pockets, deepen them up because the spring height is so much different. So I use this by hand. I don't have a Surdy or anything like that. I don't do enough of it to warrant that, which I wish I had big time. But I have this and I have this. I changed the mandrel. This will cut the valve stem down, the guide, the top of the valve guide. I'm sorry, I'll say the right thing here in a minute. So I can use these little 1/2-inch seals. It had seals similar to that, but the guides are really large, and you can't even put this spring over the guides because it's so big. They kind of locate this big, or the big guide locates this funky little chunky spring. So I've got to take this one apart. I'm going to sandblast or bead blast it. I always say sandblasting. I'm going to bead blast it, clean it up, cut all the seats down, which this one's already done. It's reassembled. It's cleaned up. It may not look like it, but it is. It's just got a little surface discoloration from washing it multiple times. I'm not doing a valve job. Cringe if you may, but whatever. I don't care. I'm simply lapping the valves back in. The valves are not that bad. I took the valves, tried to do what you normally do. They're just steel valves. They're nothing special. They're
in fact, they're junk. They're 1.5 inch exhaust valves. I tried to buff them on the wire wheel. No luck. It wouldn't touch the carbon on the exhaust valve. Actually, on the intake valves. The exhaust valves weren't that bad. I ended up bead blasting the head, the backside of the valve head, and the valves were like the cylinder block. The valves are really good shape. They're really good. I've got the stuff to cut the seats. It's very basic stuff, but I can cut the seats and the heads if necessary. I can do all three angles. The valves are not worth grinding, and my grinder is buried down in the other shop, and I'm not digging it out. If I were doing the valves, I'd buy brand new valves. They're cheap. But they were so good, I'm not going to. I bead blasted this one set and lapped them back in, and they look like brand new. There's no need to do anything. I don't need titanium or Inconel or 5-angle valve job. I'm just lapping the valves back in, cutting the seats to fit these new springs, putting the new seals on, cleaning the heads up, and putting them back together. I want to get that done today. I just want the new springs. The scary thing is the springs that were in there. Let me see. The stock spring at installed height had 90 pounds on the seat. That just blows me away. I've got the new Isky set up at 170 pounds on the seat. So there's nothing stiff about them. I don't think they'll pull the studs. If they do, I'll just have to do screw-in studs. I'm not going to do it now. I don't want to mess with it. So I'm going to get this last head built and start putting this thing back together. Got to clean the crank, clean the caps, and put new bearings in it. I cleaned the oil pan. I got to knock a few dents out of it. The pistons are ready to go. So everything's pretty close. I just got to get this one head done. I got the valve springs off, chunked them in the box of junk. So now here's what I'm trying to show you. Well, let me actually get a spring back here. So see the bosses on these valve guides? They're large. The seats are small, the bosses are large. Well, see, that locates that valve spring. So the new triple valve spring is much smaller inside. It won't fit over it. I don't know if you can see that, but it's 1/4 inch or more off of the seat. It just won't fit over it because it's smaller inside than that guide is. So I have to take a cutter, put on here, spin it with a drill, and cut that boss down to the right diameter. The bad part of that is, or the part that makes it tough, is I've got to also cut the seat down. See, that seat is set for that spring, small. This spring is much larger. So the spring doesn't have the new spring won't have a seat to sit on. It only partially set on that, and it's got bumps. See, that's a knot sticking up there. There's a knot sticking up here. So you couldn't put that big spring on this factory seat. The other issue is the guide is too big around for the seals that I have in stock and I typically use. So I'll put that mandrel out of the cutter into this, and it'll cut the OD and cut the height. Sorry for the light, it's not very good. And then I can put the new stem seals on there. None of it's a big deal. It's just time consuming. And when the cutter's trying to cut up here, it's got to cut into this rail because the spring's so much larger. It causes the cutter to jump up and down. It really needs to be done in a surdy or something like that. Put it in a mill. I just don't want to take the time. It's not worth it. I don't want to chuck it. I don't want to angle it. I don't have a 5-axis mill. I'd have to block it up at the proper angle. I'm just not messing with it. So I'm just cutting it with this cutter. And check out that new Milwaukee vacuum cleaner. That thing's the bee's knees.
if I just blew all that metal away into the floor like I normally would, it piles up, it creates a mess. But that little vacuum cleaner, that's so handy. It's just an M18 battery, and I can just turn it on and suck up that metal. And I dumped it today. There was more in there than you would expect, a couple pounds. Here I'm cutting the valve spring seats, but you can also see short clips where I'm actually installing a valve and using my spring height checker micrometer. So it goes really fast, but if you look close, you can see me. Each one of those valve seats that I cut, or spring seats, I check the height, the installed height, and cut it down to where they're all exactly the same.
I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up.
I'm using a drill and some lapping compound, and I just run it slow with the drill and pull it out, clean it, and check it, and you can see that it's making a nice seat surface there. It's easy and quick. Once the valves are lapped in, then the fun part begins. It's just putting the things together. I've already checked the seat height, and I know that the springs are right, so all I got to do now is put it together and blow the holes out, and we're done, ready to go on the motor. Okay, so that's that. Heads are ready to go. You see I ran a tap through all the holes, sprayed cleaner into all the bolt holes. These little valve cover hold down holes were full of sand and grease. They don't mix. That just makes concrete. So all the holes are clean, all the ports are clean, the water jackets are clean, the new valve springs are in, the valves are lapped and pretty much confirmed they're sealed. So next step is clean the floor up and get all of the grindings and cuttings from doing those valve seats out of here, blow it out. Then I'm going to clean the block and start putting this bad boy together. I'm ready. I went back and cleaned that crankshaft with that Zep that I was talking about. I just brushed it on with a paintbrush and rinsed it with water. It cut all of the old ugly oil and sludge off of it. And I'm using VP Racing assembly lube just on the new bearings and setting the crank here, running it down with an impact gun lightly, and I'll go back and torque it in just a minute. I'm installing new rings here, just simple, kind of economical rings, and the nice part is they were gapped already, right out of the box. I checked them, I always check, but I never get pre-gapped rings. I did it in this case because it's a low horsepower deal, and the bores were perfect, and I was really impressed. The rings were right on the money. Try to kick you while you're down. They want to rise up while you drown. Nolan from Isky sent us a cam and lifters and all the valve train parts for this thing, and it's going to be a nice little cam. It's a torque cam, but it's got just enough duration and overlap, and the lobe separation is tight enough that it's going to have a little bit of chop to it. Yeah, I'm just using a stock timing chain. I didn't even replace the gears. They were so good. I'm just putting a stock timing chain back in the thing. It's never going to see many RPM. That one-piece rear main seal is kind of a pain. I haven't done a lot of those. It's a big, giant 3-inch seal with a double lip, and to get it to go over the crankshaft without folding over or potentially cutting it, it was a little bit of a challenge, but I eventually got it. One of the best things that ever happened to a Chevy motor is that one-piece oil pan gasket. I use those on big block engines as well as these small blocks. It's just so nice. I just can't believe that it wasn't always done that way. I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb. And I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines.
So I won't give up.
Factory stock balancer, no SFI stuff here. I'm going to put a timing tape on the balancer, and I did check to make sure that the groove and the balancer lined up perfectly with the cast in timing mark on the timing cover from Holley, and they were perfect.
They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing. Won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
Okay, it's 10:30 Sunday night. This is the second weekend in a row that I've worked on this thing. You saw me take it out of the truck last weekend, clean it up Sunday. I spent yesterday pretty much cleaning it up. I explained that already. But today I got to put it together. So it's finished here at 10:30. When I say finished, what I mean is the motor's assembled. Valves are adjusted. The heads are on. Everything's done. I just set the shiny bits on here just to look at. But tomorrow I'll change engine stands. I don't want to trash this nice new Summit engine stand. Put it on a junky old stand and go out, and I'm going to paint it orange. Yeah, not black like I paint everything else. It's going to be orange with some pretty stuff on it. So that's pretty nice looking stuff. I kind of like those Holley valve covers. They look really good. I got to say, they kind of remind me of a 312 Ford, like a Thunderbird valve cover with the fins coming down here on the sides, on the ends. That looks good. I like it, actually. So we got the Holley timing cover. We got that from Summit Racing to replace the plastic piece that was on there. So it's all assembled, finished, adjusted. I'll paint it, bolt all this stuff on for real, and set it aside and wait for a few more pieces to arrive and put this, hopefully, a little bit of a thumper. It's not going to be a race car sound, but it should have a little bit of sound. And going to put some long tube headers on it. Pretty nice motor for it. Got the Sniper 2 sitting on top of it. So pretty proud of it. It was my hands suffered big time. My thumb cut is still there. Everything I touched hangs that skin on there. That's raw. Just cuts and banged up every way they can be. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'll come back and show you the thing in orange. All right, it's all painted, masked up and painted. I put 2 cans of Chevy Orange VHT on it. It looks really good. That old truck over there didn't realize last week that it's worn out, ugly, dirty, grimy motor would be painted orange, but it is. So kind of excited about it. Can't wait to put all the intake and valve covers, all that stuff on it. So anyway, that's that. Okay, so there it is. It's ready to go in. It was a long 2 weekends. I'm ready for a rest. I need a weekend for something else, maybe the 55. I don't know, something. But it's finished, ready to bolt in. All I gotta do is put a flywheel on it, stick it in the vehicle that it's going in. Don't forget to make your guess. Why would I ever need one of these? That's a good question, but I do. So make a guess. Let me know what you think it is. We'll see how many of you get it right. It's kind of cool, actually. I may drive this thing every day. You wouldn't suspect that either, or expect that. So thanks for watching. Next week, hopefully, I'll get to show you what it's going in. Until then, we'll see you next time.